On everybody, it's Key Town coming back with another one to talk about men's college basketball. Now we know that March Madness is a couple of weeks away, and there are a few teams that I see that can knock off the top ranked team in UConn. But there are also some other teams that they are just happy and grateful that they have made it this far and will be in the run for March Madness. So the question that I've been hearing throughout college basketball is who can knock off UConn? UConn is the top team in the country in men's college basketball at 24-2, with also Houston, University of Houston, winning last night. They are 23-3. Now there are a few teams that I see that can knock off UConn. One is Purdue because they have the same amount of size that UConn has. And also Duke can knock them off too. But there is one other team that I see where they might can hang with UConn, but they not gonna win versus UConn, and that is Kentucky. Kentucky, they have took a step back this year. They've lost 3 straight games for the first time since 2014. And also, I believe that college basketball has caught up to Duke and Kentucky because for years it was those two teams at the top and then there was everybody else. But now since UConn, they won last year, so last year UConn was the champions. This year I believe that they will be in the Final Four and they will repeat as champs. Now for other teams that I have that are going to be like that's going to be out of March Madness, St. Mary's, even though that they got a good team, St. Mary's, but I don't see them making it past. I don't see them making it past when we get to the final 16. I don't see them making it past the final 16. Another team, the team that played UConn last year in the Final Four in the national championship, San Diego State. I don't see them getting back to the national championship like they did last year. Another team I also see is Creighton. I don't see them getting as far. And besides, another thing about Creighton, they face UConn tonight. Top 15 matchup. I got UConn winning that because UConn, over the last 3 games, they've won all 3 games by at least 12 points or more. The only close game that they have had in the last 10 games was against Villanova, where they won by 1 point, 87-86. And the reason why UConn won that game is because they had a bad shooting night, but Villanova, they couldn't make free throws when they needed to. And that is one thing that you have to do if you want to beat UConn. You got to make free throws. You can't be in foul trouble. Your best players cannot have a bad shooting night. Now, UConn, as far as them defending, they have the best defenders in college basketball. Now, there are some other teams that will also not be able to withstand other teams in March Madness when we get to March Madness. Another team that won't be able to withstand is Marquette. Now, Marquette, they've had a good season. The last couple years, they've had good seasons, but superior competition has knocked Marquette out of it. And I expect that Marquette, they will be knocked out of March Madness by a more superior team. Another team that I think will not go as far as people predict is Illinois. Illinois, they have an average team. They are ranked 12 right now in the basketball poll, AP Top 25. I don't expect them to get to the final 8, let alone get to the final 16. So they will be knocked out. And there are two more teams, and then I'm going to get to the teams that actually have a chance at making the Final 4, the Final 8, and the Final 16. There are two more teams. Well, actually 3 more teams. Washington State, Colorado State, and Texas Tech. I do not see them making it to the Final 8 or the Final 16. I think that they will get knocked out the first weekend of March Madness. Now, I'm going to get to the teams that have a realistic chance at making it to the Final 8 or the Final 4. Now, we already know how I feel. Now, everybody, you already know how I feel about UConn. UConn, I'm predicting them to make it to the national championship, if not lose in the national championship. The best case scenario for UConn, win the national championship. The worst case scenario, make a national championship appearance. So, that is where I see UConn at. Number 2, Houston. I see them getting to the Final 8 and somebody like either Arizona or somebody like Iowa State knocking them off. That's if they play. But I also see Houston making strides to the Final 4 and possibly getting to the Final 4, but they will get knocked off in the Final 8. Now Purdue might have the best chance out of anybody to knock off UConn because they have the same amount of size. Everything about UConn, it translates to Purdue, and everything about Purdue translates to UConn. So it might be UConn and Purdue in the national championship for men's college basketball. It might be. But another team I want to talk about is Arizona. Arizona is 20-5 right now. They've had a good stretch of games. They are on a 5-game winning streak right now. And plus another team that can probably go to the Final 8 or even reach the Final 4. I got them going to the Final 8 or the Final 4. Now, Tennessee, we already know as far as Tennessee, they pretty much an average team. But when it comes to somebody like more superior competition, like the 4 other teams I just said, UConn, Houston, Purdue, or Arizona, I believe Tennessee is going to lose to one of those 4 teams. So I don't expect them to make it to the Final 8 or the Final 4. They might get knocked out in the Sweet 16. So another team that I have, let's see how many more teams I have, let's say, that can have a viable Final 4, Final 8, or Sweet 16 appearance. Now, one thing I do see is with Duke, Kansas, North Carolina, I do see those 3 teams making it to the Sweet 16 and possibly making it to the Final 8. Like these 3 teams, Duke, Kansas, and North Carolina, they are coached the exact same way. So I wouldn't be surprised if 2 of these 3 teams face off against each other in the 64 or the Sweet 16. I wouldn't be surprised by that. So those, let's say one more team, Kentucky. Now I said earlier in the show that Kentucky has took a step back, but most of the guys on Kentucky, they have experience. Those guys on Kentucky, they have been there for the last 2 years. So they have They have March Madness experience, Final Four. Well, not Final Four experience, but Kentucky got to the Final Eight last year. Who knows? They might get back to the Final Eight again, but I have a tough time picking against UConn, even betting against UConn, because UConn is the betting favorite to repeat as champions. And I'm not saying that they're going to win the national championship, but I have a hard time picking against them because I know what UConn has done over the past few months. And most of the guys that they have are from last year's team. And when you combine that experience from last year, getting to March Madness, making it to the Final Eight, making it to the Final Four, and winning the National Men's College National Basketball Championship, experience is the best teacher in anything you do. You need experience. And I know, credit to Houston. Houston, they had a good team last year. They got a good team this year. Purdue, uncharacteristically, got knocked out of March Madness last year to a group of 5 school. So one thing I'm gonna say is it's hard for me to pick UConn. I got UConn making it back to the national championship. Now I'm gonna have to see who else makes it to the national basketball championship before I can say UConn is a repeat champion, because you got a whole lot more teams, and then you have those Cinderella teams that nobody is thinking about. You got Gonzaga; they could come out of nowhere. You got other teams like, you got other teams like Appalachian State that could come out of nowhere. But Appalachian State, I don't think that they are going to get too far. They might get knocked out the first day of March Madness. But all in all, UConn is at the top. It's gonna take a Herculean effort for a team to knock them off, because they have good free throw shooters, good shooters, period, and plus they can defend the other side of the court too. I cannot tell you how many games that UConn has won this year, and they've been by blowouts. You know what? Better yet, I can. Okay. 15 of the 24 games that UConn has won, most of those games have been by blowouts. 7 of those games were by blowouts, and the other 8 of those games were by 15 points. So when they win, they don't just win, they win by a wide margin. They played one team a few weeks back where they won by 50. So you know that they could be the repeat champion. I'm not willing to go that far. I need to see what's going to happen throughout the entirety of March before I say UConn is the repeat champion. And with that, those are my outlooks for teams that are in college basketball and for March Madness, which is right around the corner. And with that, those are my outlooks. So please like, comment, share, subscribe, click the notification bell so that you can be notified every time I make a new show, a new upload. And we also have March Madness coming up. We have the NBA playoffs coming up, and the NBA finals are in June. So there will be a lot of content posted on my channel. So please like, comment, share, subscribe, click the notification bell. You already know what it is. It's key time. I give you pregame analysis and post-game analysis 5 days a week or anytime where it's a game that is notifiably more newsworthy and also to talk about. So, outside of that, those are my outlooks. With that, I am Key Time Sports. Like, comment, share, subscribe, click the notification bell to get notified. And one other thing, remember, the key is always on time with everything.